Let's bring in a man who actually knows about conversions. He's the president of the National Action Network and the host of MSNBC's Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton, and also a national reporter for the New York Times. Jeremy Peters and Chris Matthews are with us as well. Reverend Al, I want to let's turn the page just for 1 minute, if we can, and talk about what you're doing today and in celebration of the life, the ministry, the extraordinary political advancement that happened because of a Georgia preacher named Reverend Martin Luther King Jr.
We are here in Washington today, National Action Network and other civil rights groups. We will be having a rally at Metropolitan AME Church. It's a historic church where in 1895 they had the funeral of Frederick Douglass there. And then a century later, the body of Rosa Parks was brought there. And we're going to rally to say that we must keep the things that Dr. King lived and died for alive. Dr. King fought for the poor, for economic rights for everybody. Dr. King fought for an open and fair society. Voting rights came out of the King movement, which is under threat now. And the battle against DEI, which this president, incoming president, has said he was against. So we're going to, as he takes his oath, we'll respect it. We're not January 6th insurrectionists. We're not marching down near the inauguration. We're going to rally at the church. And then we're going to put up our hand and take an oath to keep Dr. King's dream alive. We're going to look at corporations that say they are against DEI now because of what the President Trump has said. Fine. You don't want diversity in your corporation. You should not have diversity among consumers. And we're going to do a 90-day study and release that. It is important to us that on the King holiday that we not lose sight of what Dr. King stood for. And it would be, to me, offensive and insulting to pardon rioters, violent men, on the holiday for the man of peace that denounced riots, even his own community.
You know, it is beyond remarkable, Rev, that you have so many corporations and colleges rushing forward saying, making a public statement that they are not in support of programs that would push for equity, that would push for what America is all about, and that is inclusion. But there you have it. That is happening. I wonder if you could, I'd ask Doris Kearns Goodwin to give us the lessons of Watergate and Vietnam and how we got through those two national nightmares and move forward together as a country when things were bleak. And the question here is how do we move forward together in times that are actually a reason to celebrate for about 50% of Americans who are very excited about what is happening today. And we're going to be talking to Jeremy Peters, who talks about how many of Donald Trump's policies even exceed popularity for Donald Trump. But you also have almost 50% of Americans, almost 50% of those who voted, who see this as a very bleak day, who are very despondent to, a divided electorate, which we have had. Willie and I have always talked about how the day after George W. Bush's reelection in 2004 shocked many people in Manhattan and across the country. But here we are. The dividing line seems even greater today. Talk about the lessons of Martin Luther King's life, especially the fact that things didn't, it wasn't a fairy tale even before the assassination, that he spent his last few years in a political wilderness where he wasn't extreme enough for some members of the civil rights movement, and he was too extreme for so-called moderates.
Well, when you look at Dr. King's life, and Martin III and Andrew Waters King was with us Wednesday here, and we talked about it. Dr. King was indicted for income tax fraud in Alabama. He fought through his house being bombed several times, way before he was lionized. And the nights he spent in jail, and then after he rose and was at the forefront of getting the Civil Rights Act of 64, the Voting Rights Act of 65, he still operated in conscience. He was attacked by those who considered themselves more to the left, who said he wouldn't embrace the Black Power crowd. He was attacked by the established civil rights leaders for coming out against the war in Vietnam. And he said that you have to operate by conscience. And I think that we find strength in knowing that if we stay consistent, in the end, history will vindicate us. We survived 4 years of Donald Trump before. George Floyd happened under Donald Trump. Breonna Taylor happened under Donald Trump. Ahmaud Arbery. We'll get through these 4 years, but we cannot let it make us become them. We have to stay united. We have to fight for equality for everybody across the board, blacks, Latinos, LGBTQ, everybody. We cannot let them make us be the progressive mirror of them. We have to raise it to higher ground. That's what Dr. King would expect of us, and that's what we're going to do.